and we had to get in. We'd work it out with a snowmobile, we'd walk it in. I've walked many a mountaintop and many a tower to get in, and with an actual kid's sled to drag our equipment. Don't like to do it, but
Snowshoes?
When we flew the balloons at that site, we walked in.
we walked in.
Okay, so
It's 2,200 feet behind the foundation at JC.
Deep in the woods.
right, but I want to really inquire about how that would be accessed. And that's going to come in off Masterway Road and go in that way. Okay, thank you.
Well, let's be clear there, where you say it's coming off, it would be the curb cut that already exists.
Right.
Coming in through the entrance to Darrow Pond,
Mhm.
open space reserve, if you will, the parking lot, and there is a trail that comes off of that to the left, behind the
Exactly,
building.
so that was going to be my next inquiry.
Yes.
Is the road going to be consistent with the current size of the trail?
Correct.
Just enough to get a service vehicle up in there.
10, 11 feet wide.
Yeah. Crane initially, yes, but a crane is an all-terrain crane that'll get up there. You've got to use an all-terrain crane. There's not going to be a guy who's going to take his regular crane off the road. It's going to be a hydraulic all-terrain, yeah.
All right, I turn over to somebody else, and then if I have any other questions.
Just a couple questions on here. How many solar cells? What's the area that's going to be needed?
No, it's going to be a 60 kilowatt system, so it's going to be somewhere in 150 panels. The panels are getting bigger all the time now. They're roughly about 315 watts. We haven't got the final design from our solar people, but we're going to use high efficiency panels that be on the ground. And
Do we know about how much area that's going to take?
I think we laid
50
out.
feet.
Yeah, 150 feet, whatever.
By 150 feet?
Yeah,
Or 150 feet row?
Yeah. It's spelled out.
spelled out. We laid it
Okay,
out.
so less than an acre.
Less than an acre, yeah.
Way less.
The what's your projections of how often the generator is going to need to be moved with the generator when we need to charge the batteries if there's solar is
How
not available?
often?
Yep.
I hope 0 times. That's just a fail-safe.
So it's being over. So how long? Okay, let me ask you this: how long will the batteries last without solar?
We're going to plan on 7 to 10 days.
7 to 10 days.
But the town's average transmission usage affects how much battery life we need, and we don't have a history. We have a history. Dick sent me his electric bill for one of the sites, and the solar people designed for 3 or 4 days. I went out to 10. I'm a man from Murphy. Murphy always can affect something, and I want enough time. If somebody even tampers with the solar panels, that I can get down to do something, and the generator will have enough propane to last it running for a month, 11 days, whatever it might be, because it's going to that generator is going to charge the batteries. Even the air conditioning system on the shelter will be DC powered, 48 volts, which is unique. Won't be AC. Won't be an AC conversion, so there's no power loss.
Do you know? Okay, and if the batteries do go, if the solar does go down, how long does it take to charge them with the generator?
The generator is usually 10 to 12 kilowatts. The demand for the site is only going to be about 3.5 kilowatts, so it should be a matter of a few hours.
Okay, I'm just again. I want to make sure this thing's not going to be kicking on every night. A lot.
No, don't want it,
Okay.
because it's a long haul to bring the propane up to refill the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. With a sled. No, we got to get a, because, up there often, and I survived the 11-day storm. We had a big site running all 11 days on propane, because the utility didn't get to us till the last minute. So, and that was using a 1,000-gallon tank. I think this will be probably a 500-gallon tank.
Okay.
More than enough to handle it for a long time. So,
Thanks.
And, Mr.
I
Cunningham.
have a question. I heard the term tonight, and I'm not familiar with it, a backhaul dish antenna. And what is that purpose, and what does that anticipate?
the dish is used to connect to the other simulcast sites that the town has. So that's how the synchronization and signals of all the town's radios get over to this site. It's not magic, although people think it's magic. There's already a microwave between all the other town sites. The town already owns that microwave, and it's very low power, it's in the milliwatts, but it has to reach the other site that the town has. That's one of the reasons of locating it where it is. And that provides all the connectivity to provide the audio, synchronization signals, and timing for launch to transmit signals from this site. Whoever calls up on whatever, be an EMS channel, or police channel, or the buses, whatever it is, they have to be synchronized. So they come up the same. It looks like, the best way to explain simulcast is picture every one of these lights as a separate site. And when it comes to audio and RF, they have to turn on at the distance that they are apart by speed of light. So they use a GPS receiver at each site, determines the timing. Whichever site determines which one had the best audio sends it to all 3 sites, and then they're launched at a certain different time so that the people in the field appear to look like one big signal. So that's what it's for.
That's what that does. And so that, will that be mandatory, or is that something that it says that they may install it at some point in the future? Is that something
No,
that would be
there's one
necessary?
for us to link back for our system to a nearby site. In the initial, what we haven't determined yet, we have a nearby site that we can see this site. We went after the town's work first and provided a dish for us later that can go to one of the sites that we're currently at. That's for our backhaul.
Got it.
But that's what that is.
Thank you.
The more I know, the less I know. That's an amazing description, sir. Speechless. Did you have a question?
I am good.
Okay. We're not certainly done. Attorney Zamarka, representing our town attorney and part of our town attorney team, you may want to speak to some of the items that came up regarding our agreement with Marcus.
Certainly. A lot of what was brought up here today are not necessarily issues with the lease, but issues with the negotiated terms of the lease. And as the first selectman and Mr. Morris and Mr. Marcus pointed out, this is something that's been ongoing for about the past 2 years. There was a question brought up about a limitation on the option period. The option period is for 12 months, and it can be extended for an additional 12-month period in writing and based on the payment of another $100 option fee. From the time, in terms of the timelines, from the time the lease is actually executed, Marcus then has 18 months within which to completely build out the facility, the tower, everything like that. So there are caps on the time frame here. So I don't think we necessarily need to worry about that. It is correct that the use is as a telecommunications tower. That's in section 3A of the lease. Again, the difference between the net rental income in terms of the additional rent, the net rental versus gross, a percentage of the gross versus a percentage of the net. Again, these were terms that were negotiated between representatives of the town, representatives of Marcus Communications. Everyone has signed off on these. And as was pointed out by the first selectman and everyone else, the purpose of this also, the main purpose was not necessarily as a revenue generator for the town, but more to get the communications facilities, the necessary emergency communications facilities in to take care of the northern part of the town. Let's see. In terms of who will be installing the town's equipment, again, this is a term that was negotiated between the parties, and it was agreed between the parties that Marcus Communications will be in charge of putting the town's equipment on that top 20 feet of the tower as set forth in the lease. There were some concerns brought up about the road. It's important to remember that once the option period begins, Marcus still has to get all their approvals, which include zoning, which include wetlands. There will have to be a site plan filed. So those are things that can and will be addressed in the future, and there are safeguards in place for those as well. There was an issue brought up about an assignment of the lease. Any assignment, there are a couple of safeguards built in. First, any assignment has to go to a company that is, pardon me, I need to find the page here, FAA licensed, or FCC licensed, pardon me. And also, the town has the right to give written approval to any assignee of this. And in terms of carrying out the terms of the lease, any assignee, should Marcus decide, Mostaway Towers LLC, decide to assign this at some point, that assignee then stands in the shoes of Marcus and is responsible for carrying out Marcus's obligations under the lease. There was an issue several times brought up about utilities as well. Mr. Marcus indicated that this will be solar, and as right now there will be no utilities run. Even if there are at some point, those utilities are the responsibility of Marcus Communications. It is on page 6 of the lease. It's paragraph 6E. Tenant shall have the right to install utilities at tenant's sole expense. It also provides for separate meters wherever possible, and where meters are not possible, then there will be a divvying up of expenses based on usage between the town and between Marcus Communications or any other of the tenant, any other of the tenant uses. I think that has addressed all of the issues that I've written down that were brought up to this point.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mark.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
You mentioned some of the permitting process will be through the town. Where's the line between the siting council and the town approvals for like the road? And I know the siting council can override some of our town.
They
personal
can,
rights.
they can. That will be dependent on the application that's put forth to the siting council.
Does it usually exclude the road?
It usually does. It usually does, but again, we'll have to see to make sure.
Okay. And you said utilities, if utilities need to be brought in for other carriers, that it'll be paid for at sole expense of, not the town.
That's correct.
What if that includes road improvements and stuff like that? Is that still included in that? That the town will not be responsible?
If the utilities come
If the
in,
utilities have to come in and the road has to be widened or trees have to be cut down so that you could get.
that would still be Marcus's
It would still all be
responsibility.
on Marcus?
Yes.
And it'll have to go through the approval
No.
process?
No.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Siri, did you have a question? No.
Nope.
That you were raising your hand. Let's
keep going
speak
back and
to
forth.
siting council. We've had a history of the siting council in our town. I think they've conducted about 6 public hearings this very room because of various towers in our town, proposed towers, and a few that are actually built. Is this a different type of siting council, Mr. Marcus? Let's talk about that because again, we've had. No, come on up. You might want to just sit closer. I've always wanted to say that to all the people that sit in the back of the room.
As much as I can during the day. This tower currently is not under siting council jurisdiction, it's under yours.
Okay.
You're driving this boat, okay? If a carrier should come, then it becomes siting council purview.
Okay.
So really, this is your tower for your use and us for land mobile use. Right now, it is not a siting council administered tower. Not that it wouldn't be in the future if a carrier came, because the siting council is trying to limit the amount of towers to go into a community.
Of course.
They're trying to make it more efficient and more hospitable to the communities that these towers show up in. So the tower requirement, we're going to meet the state's requirements of the siting council to build a tower to accommodate the carriers above and beyond public safety. Not our intent to make it a cellular tower. Most cellular towers, the Verizon people want the top, the T-Mobile people want the next platform. We're stealing all that top space. Because we usually, when we go to a tower that already exists, we have to go through hell and high water to negotiate with Crown or anybody else to get the top for public safety. Because we want to be omnidirectional on receive, and the carriers want to be directional on the faces. We stole the top property of this tower and made it for the town and put the arms on it to make it so the town's communications work efficiently in ours. Any carriers coming, they're going to have to go downstairs. Okay, which also is going to make better visual appeal to anybody in the neighborhood because they're not going to see the carriers' facilities. They're going to be lower if they come. But the requirement is to build it that way so you don't come back and rebuild the tower.
So right now, you're building a 190-foot, just crystal clear,
Yeah.
190-foot tower, and it does not require siting council approval, public hearing, the whole.
This is not a carrier tower.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just.
Wasn't
all
intended as, I mean, it was, the
It's
primary goal
very
is
interesting.
selfish for the town.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, sir. It was brought up by a comment about possible, it might be possibly in the conservation. I was clear at the beginning, but I want to be crystal clear. This is town land, town-controlled land. This is not in the conservation easement. This is not the preserved open space area. This is, we're very clear and very sure of this. This is in the land that the town bought for use for municipal purposes. So, we'll make sure we're clear on that. Were there other questions while we keep this open? Would anyone else like to speak for the public? Sir? No, you do. You do. Yeah, we gotta get you on record.
John Spiegel, property at 231 Boston Post Road. I'm not sure what the intentions of the council is tonight to close the public hearing, perhaps. If there's any changes that may be incorporated, I would recommend that they keep the public hearing open so the public has a chance to review any changes in the lease. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, any questions from the Board of Selectmen? What we usually do, sir, is we probably close the public hearing, but there's always public delegations, and you would have a chance to read the lease, because it's always public information. You discovered it on Monday, but it's been a public document for a little while now at the clerk's office. But we'd always be welcoming, and this is a pretty open board. We're always looking for good, solid opinion, and fact, too, by the way.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. Any comment?
I think it's been made clear that anyone who wished to have further comment could come to the next meeting
Yes.
and speak under public delegation prior to the meeting beginning,
Right.
that they are not allowed to participate in the meeting itself. They
With
need
it.
to be here promptly and speak at the time that's indicated on the agenda for delegations.
Correct. Should that even be necessary. I agree. Any other comments? I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Then we're out of public hearing. We'll just take a 5-minute break and regroup. We're going to have our regular meeting next. About 5 minutes, that's all. Turn that off, please.